Nice smile? Check. Biceps? Oh yes. Pec pop? That's right. Check. So if you're like me, you've most likely had a list of what you thought the ideal man looked like. You know, he had to smell good, dress good, have muscles, and all of these things. Tall, dark, and handsome. Well, truthfully, what I came to find out was that if you really want the one that is right for you, you have to ask God to help you look beyond the surface level and look at the heart of the person. So, welcome to Road to Forever. I'm Terry, and as you can tell from the title of today's video, I'm going to talk about how to find a godly man. And I'm going to specifically give you 4 practical tips on what you should be looking for when looking for your godly man. And guys, I didn't want to forget anything, so I have a list with some tips. So if you see me looking down, that's what it is. Also, it's hot, so the fan is blowing. Otherwise, I'd be on here sweating like crazy, and I'm sure that's not what you want to see. So let's jump into the video. So first of all, what is a godly man? Because I think, that's probably a question you have. You hear this term and you're like, well, what does that look like? So for me, this is what I wrote down. To me, a godly man is one who is walking with the Lord. So God is their number 1 priority. And I'll get into some questions you're going to want to ask yourself, especially as it pertains to these different characteristics that I'm going to list out for a godly man. So he's walking with the Lord. He's willing to commit, because that's really important. He's able to lead, and he's also able to provide and protect. So let's go back to that first one, that this guy is walking with the Lord and God is number 1 in his life. So you want to ask yourself, is this someone who is growing spiritually? Is this guy, someone who's reading the Bible, who is on fire for the Lord? He is, willing to be the hands and feet of the Lord. So he's studying his word, he's praying, communicating with the Lord. He is, going out and serving others. So just think about God when he was here on earth, and just when you read through the Gospels, you learn all about Christ's character and start to see, is this someone who is growing in these areas in terms of having this Christ-like character? In the Bible, it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. And so when you look at the fruit of the Spirit, does this gentleman that you are interested in possess those different characteristics? So that's really important. That's the first thing that you want to think about, because this individual, it's tied to another characteristic that you're going to look for. And so if he's not growing spiritually, then he's not going to be able to lead you in the future. And so that's something I'll get back to in a few minutes. Next thing that I have on my list is that he's willing to commit. Now, you really don't want to date someone who's going to string you along. And I've been there, right? Where you've dated the person for 2-3 years and you're thinking, oh, is he going to propose? Is he going to marry me? Whatever. Well, that's not what you want. You want somebody who knows that you are the right one for them, and that that you are the person that God has put in their life for a reason. And so why date someone who is basically going on and, just dragging you along for the ride and enjoying themselves, that whole, they want to have a wife, but they don't want to give you the title of a wife. So I've been there, definitely made that mistake, that whole putting the cart before the horse, and that led nowhere. So you want someone who's willing to commit. So this idea of dating with a purpose, and that's something you talk about with the person you're dating early on in your relationship. Like, what is the purpose for this relationship? Is this a relationship that is leading to marriage? Like, where do you see yourself, 2-3 years from now? And if they can't answer that question and you're not part of that picture, then that tells you that you're not on their list. And so maybe you want to move on and, find someone who wants to commit to you, because you're worth it. So definitely keep that in mind as well. Next thing on my list that I had here is that he's able to lead. And so this is tied into that piece earlier when I said, is he growing spiritually? And the reason why I say, this is something that's important that you want to look for, is he able to lead, is because, when you get married, you have to submit to your husband. Believe it or not, he has to submit to the Lord and you have to submit to him. And this is a whole nother discussion for another video, talking about like what submission looks like in marriage. But if you read Ephesians 5 verses 22 through 33, it talks a lot about submission. And so You know, are you someone that can submit to this gentleman? So you want to think about, you know, ask the question, can I follow his leadership? Do you trust him in that way? So, you know, is he literally going to be someone you can say, you know what, I'm going to be okay with him making the decision, and then follow that decision, like whatever that is, because I know we're in a society where we've, you know, come to this idea of being independent women, and like we may have been together for so long and we can do things on our own and we don't need a man to do that. But when you get in a relationship, especially one where it's a godly relationship and marriage is something that's on the table, you have to make sure that whoever it is that you're with, you're able to submit to their leadership, or that he is growing in such a way and walking in such a way with the Lord that you feel comfortable submitting to his leadership. So that's definitely something to keep on your list. Next one I have on here is that provide and protect. And Sarah, stick around, because I know I said 4, but I have some bonuses as well, like bonus tips. But is he able to provide and protect? And when I say, let's break down that whole idea of provision versus protection. So when I say provide, I'm sure the first thing that comes to your mind is financial. But truthfully, you want someone who can provide emotional and physical well-being as well. So is this person going to be able to minister to you in a way that helps you grow spiritually? Is this someone that's going to be able to support you how you need to be supported emotionally? So you really have to think about that. You know exactly what you need in a relationship, and can the man that you're dating provide for you in that way? So think beyond this financial piece, and think about, you know, these other factors as well. Because the truth of the matter is, and I've learned this throughout my life of dating men, and I mean, I'm not that old, but I've learned this from my mistakes with dating, is that a man who has character and has, like, you know, is focused on the Lord, that is more important than someone who has a lot of money. Because I've dated the guy who had tons of money, but was not the best person and treated me in a way where I didn't feel good enough, and I was always thinking about my worth. But, you know, I've dated someone who also their character was important, and then that's the foundation. So the individual needs to have a foundation that is built on the Lord, because all they can do is go up from there. They can grow. You know, your financial status can change at any time, but your character is who you are, whether or not you have money. So you really have to keep that in mind. And I also said, do you want someone who is able to protect you? Truthfully, when you're in a relationship, you want to feel safe. And if, like me, I don't know, this may not be your story, I grew up without like my father around, and so I always had these issues with trust. And, you know, I don't know, it was something that was really difficult for me, and I was always looking for, you know, love in the wrong places in my relationship. And so being with someone who you feel is going to protect your heart, and who's going to look out for your best interest is really important. And that person also, they're going to have to protect you when it comes to decisions that they make with you, when it, you know, as it relates to their parents. Because especially if it's someone, or you date a guy who is the product of a single family home, and maybe this guy grew up with his mom, and if his mom was a really strong personality, and now you have to be in a relationship with that person, and, you know, the mom is trying to manipulate the situation, and is your partner going to step up and protect you? So you have to think about all of these things. So those are the top 4 things I would say you definitely want to look for. So let me go back through those again. First is this person walking with the Lord, right? So God is number 1 in their life. 2, is this an individual who leadership you're able to submit to, right? So is he willing to commit as well to you? And then can he provide and protect you? Now for some bonus tip. This one is super important, is really key, and that is this person selfless? Are they able to put your needs above their own? Because when you get into a marriage, what you'll recognize is that being selfless is so important. It's not about you anymore. It's about your partner and what you can do to basically elevate your partner. You know, I always talk about one of my favorite Bible verses in Philippians, which talks about esteem others greater than yourself. So you have to have this level of humility. And when you think about God, our Savior, and the fact that what he did by dying on the cross, that sacrificial love, he was completely selfless. And so if you're looking for a man who's after God's own heart, he would understand this idea of being selfless. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then also, one other thing I want to mention is, in the Bible, it says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor from the Lord. And that's in Proverbs. And so the truth of the matter is, you don't need to go out looking for a godly man. But if you're approached by a man, you can use these different characteristics to identify whether or not he's a godly man. Because when you are walking in purpose according to God's will for your life, the man he has for you will see you working for God, and that will probably be a reason he's attracted to you. When we read in the story of Genesis with Adam and Eve, his eyes was open to Eve, right? So when you are doing God's work, he will see you and he will know that you are the one that God designed for him. So right now, especially if you're single and in this area of singleness, what you really need to do is just commit to working on your relationship with the Lord, growing, doing what he's called you to do, and bloom wherever God has planted you. And as you do that, the person that God has for you, he will notice you. I hope you found this video helpful. If you like this content, please share it with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe for more awesome content just like this. Before you leave, I want to remind you, you're only one prayer away. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Take care.